Red 1 didn't stay number 1 for long. The holiday action vehicle for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson flamed out at the box office well before Christmas ever came, and these odd decisions definitely didn't help matters. Warning, spoilers ahead if you're interested. Red 1 goes off the rails pretty quickly. After opening on a flashback scene of Chris Evans' Jack O'Malley being a naughty kid, it's not too long until we're whisked away to the present day, when we're introduced to The Rock's Callum Drift as he guards Santa Claus at a Philadelphia mall. The real Santa pretends to be a fake mall Santa for some reason, giving shades of Miracle on 34th Street. Setting aside how Santa got this job or how his bodyguard got to be part of the deal, so far, so good. After Santa leaves the mall, Drift calls upon a squad of SUVs that escort him and his boss to a US military hangar. In the hangar, Santa's classic sleigh, along with giant reindeer, is parked next to a few high-end fighter jets. Then a US military liaison greets Santa, ordering 2 pilots to escort his sleigh during takeoff. Soon enough, Santa gives a reindeer a magical command, and the sleigh goes into light speed towards the North Pole. Which raises the question, if Santa can go that fast, what's the purpose of the military jets? They don't follow him long, and once he speeds up, no mortal vehicle could catch him anyway.
Is a singular force in the universe.
One of the most egregious scenes in the film, due to its moral implications, is when The Rock tortures Jack O'Malley. Jack had just been abducted by director Harlow and her Mora agents, then shipped off to the North Pole to be interrogated on how he helped track down Santa. It quickly turns into an enhanced interrogation involving a large, sentient polar bear.
Garcia?
What the hell?
This leads to the sound of cracking bones and Jack screaming in pain. That is until Harlow orders them to stop. It's implied that this is a semi-regular occurrence. A big problem is that this is all played for laughs. It's riffing off of post-9/11 shows and movies such as Zero Dark 30 and of 24, which would portray torture as a necessary tool against terrorism. The supposed humor in Red 1 then comes from the incongruity of the gritty, hard-boiled setup and the whimsical Christmas movie aesthetics. The morality of The Rock or of Santa's organization, however, is not to be questioned. Worse, the whole theme of the movie is about how Santa doesn't want to punish bad kids, just reward the good ones. It's the villain, Greela, who plans to punish the whole world. To have a scene condoning punitive violence seems to inherently contradict that message.
The world will be punished.
One of the cringiest running bits in Red 1 has got to be the characters constantly spouting off supposed comedic acronyms throughout the interminable runtime. To be fair, the first one introduced Mora, which stands for Mythological Oversight and Restoration Authority, isn't really a joke, and is instead an obvious failed attempt at jump-starting some sort of cinematic holiday universe. Basically, it's meant to be like the MCU's S.H.I.E.L.D. or Monarch in the legendary Monsterverse. Other acronyms and initialisms, however, are clearly attempts at jokes, like NL, standing for Naughty Lister. The worst of the bunch has to be E.L.F, which stands for Enforcement, Logistics, and Fortification. It's the organization with special agents in red and green tactical leather outfits that protects Santa Claus, headed by Drift. But he somehow gets offended when Jack asks him if he's an elf himself. To make the E.L.F acronym joke even worse and more nonsensical, Santa's elves also exist in this world. Are they not part of the E.L.F team? If so, how do they feel about the acronym being named after their species? And why is The Rock so discriminatory towards his cheery Christmas colleagues? Callum Drift's weapon of choice is a magical gauntlet that can turn toys into real objects. For instance, he uses a gauntlet to transform a Matchbox toy car into a real, drivable product-placed sports car. Chris Evans' Jack then quips that he wants to use the gauntlet on a Wonder Woman doll.
It's not how it works, come on.
The problem isn't the gadget itself, it's how lazy the rules around it are. We're told it has limitations, but never told what its limitations are, or the full extent of its powers.
How did
I adjusted it to reality.
And does that
No, it doesn't work on everything. No, you can't try it. No, you can't drive. No more questions.
But seriously, what counts as a toy? At one point, The Rock takes a Monopoly board game and does nothing with it. Could he conceivably crush an enemy with a life-size hotel piece? Or would it be made of brick and mortar or steel-colored plastic? What about a Nerf gun? Would the projectiles become real, exploding missiles instead of foam? Also, it can turn a chicken keychain into a live bird, which means that Jack's assumption about the Wonder Woman doll might unfortunately work, given what's explicitly shown on screen. Another dumb aspect of the world building in Red 1 is how all toy stores, for some reason, have magical portals that can teleport people to other toy stores across the world. The Rock explains to a reasonably dumbfounded Jack that this is used as a travel network for Santa's helpers, and is also where The Rock gets his aforementioned supplies. However, there seems to be a lot of logistical issues involved with these magical toy store portals. For one, when the doors are opened, the portal itself is hidden by an illusion of a small supply closet. But what's stopping an employee from getting a mop and accidentally finding themselves in China or Finland? Also, what constitutes a toy store anyway? Is it a store that only sells toys, or would a mega store like Walmart or Target count, since it undeniably sells a lot of toys, even if it doesn't exclusively? Where is the line drawn? Now, to be fair to Red One, there is a blink-and-you'll-miss-it shot of The Rock using a special key from his keychain before opening the toy store supply closet. So, presumably it's the key that's creating the portal, and not the toy store itself. However, that's still a plot hole, because if it's just a key that's creating the portal magic, couldn't The Rock just use it to make any door into a portal? The toy store portals and The Rock's toy manipulation gauntlet both lead to one of the most annoying issues in any universe that relies on a secret magical world hidden away from the real one. How do you keep that world a secret for so long? It makes a certain amount of sense if the plot takes place entirely in the fantasy realm, or the fights in the real world are in remote places, or even if there's some sort of fantastical explanation for why people aren't aware. However, Red One doesn't do any of that. Instead, we have The Rock transforming a toy car into a real one in the middle of a crowded city street with no one batting an eye, and then having a bombastic fight with sentient snowmen on a busy beach that didn't become headline news instantly.
That was so disturbing.
This is especially galling in a modern context, since everyone and their grandmothers now have phones that can record video. So even if people thought it was a hoax initially, the multiple angles and sources would prove their validity soon enough. Even if not, conspiracy theories would pop up immediately anyway. There could have even been a plot point about the villain Gryla wanting to unveil the mythological realm to the humans to strike fear in them before her plan to imprison them. But alas, we got what we got. Like a lot of the MCU films that Red One is clearly trying to emulate, the main dynamic and emotional core of the film is a bickering between the two leads, The Rock as Santa's stoic, loyal soldier, and Jack O'Sullivan as the sardonic and selfish criminal turned anti-hero. This means their back-and-forth barbs take up most of the content's runtime, leaving little room for much else, including fleshing out Gryla's part of the story. Essentially, her plan involves manufacturing billions of magical snow globes that would trap any human that had ever done anything even remotely naughty, which would effectively be everyone living on Earth. At one point, Jack sees his estranged son Dylan get trapped inside one of them. Then, in a series of events so stupid it almost made his own entry, Jack also finds himself trapped in a magical snow globe too, positioned next to his son in Gryla's evil lair. However, after a brief heart-to-heart between the two, the magical snow globe prisons break and shatter, freeing them both. This means that there's no way Gryla would have been able to magically keep billions of people locked up for long if simply being slightly nicer than usual for like 5 minutes would allow prisoners to escape. A regular prison would be better and more evil too. Now, admittedly, the logistical issues involving Santa are inherently a problem with all popular Christmas movies that focus on him. For instance, how can Santa reasonably travel across the world in one night? And how was he not seen or noticed during that time, given our advanced technology such as radar, sonar, surveillance cameras, cell phones, satellite feeds, and more? And most importantly, do parents get amnesia about the presents they didn't buy? The thing is, in most Christmas stories, the logistics of Santa's journey aren't that important, and can usually be hand-waved away with "because Christmas magic," which honestly is fine. Holiday films are often simple fairy tales anyway, so there's nothing wrong with just implying Santa gets it done somehow. Some whimsy in your storytelling is healthy every now and then. The issue with Red One is we do see the logistics. It's a big part of the final scene. Furthermore, one of the main plot points that gets the story in motion is Jack using satellite tech to track down and find Santa. So it answers a question no one was seriously asking and proceeds to answer it poorly. While Santa's reindeer are appropriately fast, Santa himself simply parkours everywhere at only slightly above regular human speed once arriving. And even though it's established that tech can find him, he doesn't do anything to hide himself outside of turning small. The only clever moment, how he deals with chimneyless houses, is ripped off from 1994's The Santa Claus.
He turns into jello and a fireplace kind of appears and he goes through it like this.
The North Pole, as seen in Red One, is basically a dystopian red and green painted Amazon factory, not exactly a Santa-worthy sort of place. To add insult to injury, The Rock visits Santa's original, humble, now historical cabin with a plaque that even says where it all began. This obviously implies that Santa began his toy-making career in the cabin, and then subsequently grew his empire to be as gaudy as possible. This sort of capitalist hagiography, which galvanizes great self-made men, has always been a lie, even if it's constantly regurgitated represented in our mainstream media. Even Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who many point to as a prototypical self-made billionaire, always fails to mention that he was given a loan from his family of over $500,000 when accounting for inflation. That's an amount of wealth most people, even in the 90s, were not privy to. But seeing as Amazon MGM Studios is behind Red One, it's no surprise that this plot point is shoved in.